Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, March 7th, 2025. Were you one of the 405,427 taxpayers who received a notification letter about your leaked income tax return? You may remember that IRS contractor Charles Littlejohn stole and leaked federal income tax returns and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. You may also remember there was a lot of discontent over that 5-year sentence. Some thought that 5 years was much too lenient. Still others argued that he should not have been prosecuted at all since he performed a valuable public service by showing how little some of America's wealthiest citizens paid in income taxes. Now we're finding out the true extent of that leak. This is from an article in National Review. When news of the stolen tax returns first became known, the IRS said that Littlejohn's leaks impacted an estimated 70,000 taxpayers. The IRS recently sent a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio, notifying him that Littlejohn's illegal disclosures impacted not 70,000, but 405,427 taxpayers, 89% of which were business entities. The Obama IRS targeted conservatives. The Biden IRS leaked your data, Jordan said on X. The IRS said it mailed notification letters to all of the taxpayers impacted by Littlejohn's illegal actions. The IRS also set up an email for taxpayer inquiries and disclosed information about Littlejohn's leak on its website. So, how can we prevent this from happening again? There's only one way: repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS. If the government doesn't have your confidential data, it can't leak your confidential data. Now, even the deep state advocates in D.C. can't defend leaking confidential IRS information on 405,000 people and businesses. However, President Trump and an increasing number of Americans from every corner of the country are now seeing that the income tax and the IRS are like that old car that will cost more to fix than it's worth. Unfortunately, the system is so badly broken that no matter how much you spend to fix the IRS and the income tax, it will remain a corrupt and broken system. When President Trump says no taxes on tips, Social Security, and overtime, there's almost unanimous cheering. The true distaste for the income tax and the IRS is becoming so loud that no one can save them. In conclusion, now, of course, reasonable thinking Americans realize that some form of taxation is necessary if the government's going to keep running and providing the services that people need and demand. The real question is, what should that system of taxation look like? Now, obviously, no one particularly enjoys paying taxes, but we have a clear choice here. We can keep the income tax, where the IRS remains as a political weapon to be used against anyone who dares to defy or even question the ruling elites, where the government continues to collect your personal financial data even though they're unable to safeguard it from being stolen and leaked, and the Treasury continues to lose over $1 trillion a year to cheaters and evaders. Or we can go with a well-researched replacement plan that is ready to be implemented, the FAIRtax. The FAIRtax is a national retail sales tax on new retail goods and retail services, and it also does the following. It replaces the government revenue now being collected by the income payroll tax. It gives each of us our whole paycheck and lets us decide how much federal tax we pay by how much we spend on new retail goods and retail services. It eliminates all federal taxes on income and all federal tax returns for both individuals and businesses. It provides a family consumption allowance that exempts purchases up to the poverty level from taxation, making it a progressive sales tax. The FAIRtax is administered by the states and eliminates the need for the Internal Revenue Service. It also brings jobs in manufacturing back to the United States and permanently ensures the solvency of Social Security and Medicare. In President Trump, we have a president who sees that the corrupt and incomprehensible income payroll tax system has to be eliminated if America is once again going to be free and prosperous. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and that returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elites. We must let Congress and the President know the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the fair tax. Now, make no mistake about it. The fair tax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the fair tax will be fierce and unrelenting. And don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempt to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Now, of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so that no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the fair tax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts of all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information to President Trump about the fair tax, please let us know. Also, please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representative and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with a fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution: pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help us bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing or investing $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to FAIRtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.